Imagine if you took Marcus Aurelius, ancient Roman emperor, one of the most powerful people of all time, plucked him from ancient Rome and put him in a green vest working at Amazon today, right? Really just imagine bro working a 9 to 5. Most of you would probably think he'd be one of the most miserable people, right? He goes from being this huge, powerful person back then, to working for minimum wage now. There's a huge difference in power and freedom and, opportunities he has with money. In all reality, though, if you look at his teachings and everything he wrote in his journal, he was built for this. His whole mindset was completely different than what most people have today. Most people just grudge through the day. When they first wake up to the alarm clock, they feel miserable. They hate the alarm clock itself. They hate getting up. They hate getting ready. They hate going into the shift, clocking in, working, clocking out. But he learned to just love the fate, love putting the reps in. And he would likely use that repetitive motions and repetitive tasks to almost as like moving meditation, right? And this is something I've done in my own job where once I get into a flow at work, I just start thinking about ideas and the future and philosophy. And I would imagine he would do mostly the same thing. He would just learn to love the positive aspects of it. All that time you get where you get to think and just, do the same task over and over, it frees up your mind because your body is so honed in on one task that your mind doesn't really have to think about a whole lot. But that's where you can use that time to think about the things you want to. And he spoke a lot about keeping a mental fortress where you always stand guard at the gates of your mind, I think is the actual quote he said, something close to that. And what that basically means is whenever something happens to you at work, don't immediately react to it, right? Think of it as an enemy soldier approaching the gates of your mind. And you have to think for about 2 or 3 seconds if you're going to let that soldier enter the castle of your mind and occupy your thoughts. And, he spoke a lot about making sure that you don't let those wayward negative thoughts enter in the first place. You observe them and give them the weight they deserve, but then you just let it go because you realize that you don't need to give any attention or any thought to stuff that's going to drain your energy. He always taught to think big picture. So right now, right, I want you to sit there and think for a second. You're probably sitting in your room, maybe sitting at your desk or on your bed. Let's zoom out a little bit. You're inside your house. Zoom out a little more. You're in your neighborhood. Zoom out more. You're in your state or city. Zoom out again and just keep on zooming out, right? Now you're in a country. Now you're on a planet. Now you're in a solar system. Now you're on a Milky Way. So when you zoom out like this, you start to realize those little transgressions at work that you have so much, weight on, that you have been dwelling on all day, replaying in your head a million times. I know because I do it too. If you zoom out for just a couple seconds, you're realizing, is any of this going to matter tomorrow, a day, 2 days, 3 days, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a year from now? Most likely not. And when you zoom out and take that big picture approach, you realize just how insignificant everything you do is, and that can actually be beneficial, as dark and kind of bleak as that sounds. Because once you realize that nothing you do really matters, you kind of just focus on what you want to do and how you want to approach things. And you take your emotions out of it. And you make the best rational, logical decision. Because it'll come to you once you realize that nothing you do really matters. And Marcus Aurelius will tell you that big picture perspective shrinks problems down to their actual size. So if it's something like, say, somebody, called you an asshole at work, right? Sure, in the moment, yeah, it makes you reactive, emotional. You want to fight, you want to get them back for calling you an asshole. But in all reality, once you take that big picture, you realize, okay, yeah, it got me upset for like 2 seconds, but we're both probably going to move on tomorrow, and life continues. The world keeps spinning. We both keep coming back to the job, and that's just the end of it, really. Even better is when you can practice what he called premeditatio malorum, which, sounds like a Harry Potter spell, right? But really, it's premeditating or thinking early about malorm, evils. So it's thinking about evils ahead of time. Thinking about all the what ifs, the hypotheticals, something that all of my introverts and overthinkers out there love to do, including me. But instead of just thinking about it, all the what ifs and the scenarios that could happen, might happen, maybe happen, probably won't happen, come up with actual plans and, reactions to what would happen, right? So for him, that looked like, if an invading army were to take over my country, what would I do? If I were to be betrayed by all my best men, what would I do? He went through the list of every possible what if, and he had a plan, right? So it removes the surprise from everything. It makes you prepared for the worst case scenario. It doesn't make any of these hypotheticals more or less likely to happen, but at least you're prepared for if they do. Which, again, I want to stress that most of the time, 90% of the things you worry about in your head never happen. But if you're going to worry about them, at least come up with a plan in case they do happen. And all of this to say that you just have to learn to use your job. Don't hate your job. Even if you absolutely hate what you do, I get it. But don't let those external stressors mess up your mind. You can protect your mind while you use your job. Guard your mental energy at all costs and learn to love the fate you're in. And always think big picture. Those are the big takeaways. And if you just keep this mindset, you can keep your job working for you instead of you working the job. That's the way I look at it. And, he was a Roman emperor that if he were to go through the same 9 to 5 that we all go through, this is how he would have got through it. This is his survival guide in a way. I'm writing for him 2,000 years later in the future, telling you how he would have thought about it. All of you guys go out there, stay humble, stay candid, and most importantly, just have a good day.